Hey everyone, it's Andy from IAM. I just want to talk about a subject reflecting on sovereignty, taking personal responsibility and corporate accountability. So, this topic I want to explore challenges our very understanding of freedom, sovereignty, and accountability, i.e., corporate fraud. It's very easy to point fingers at large corporations, accusing them of deception and exploitation, but as we delve deeper, we must confront a more uncomfortable truth. Are we not the individuals not only complicit in, but perhaps even the architects of the very fraud we so vocally denounce? And how do the systems we participate in daily undermine our sovereignty, binding us into a cycle of dependence and control? So let's look at try and understand the accusations. When we think of fraud, we often envision corporations manipulating the system for profit and betraying the trust of the people. We therefore demand justice, accountability, and transparency from these entities. But what if the true nature of fraud extends beyond corporate misconduct? What if it involves the very structures we rely on, bank accounts, passports, mortgages, and our very participation in these systems? What if, in seeking the benefits and privileges offered by these systems, we have inadvertently compromised our own sovereignty? I look at this, stop shouting fraud, and I call for discernment. But in this age of information disinformation, it's all too easy to join the chorus of voices shouting fraud, simply because someone else said it. But let me urge you to stop and use your own discernment, do your own due diligence, understand the systems you're engaging with before you make claims. It's time to start acting like the petulant child that the system expects you to be by reacting impulsively without understanding the full picture. Instead, stand strong, learn the rules of the game, play the game with the tools they provide you. These are all laid out in front of you, and you're blind until you can see. Remember, in any game, those who understand the rules have the greatest chance of winning. And when it comes to making claims or accusations, remember this as well. He who makes a claim bears the burden of proof. If you're going to challenge the system, ensure that your claims are backed by solid evidence and understanding. I also urge you this: be very wary of the Pied Pipers and the so called truth movement, those who lead with loud voices but little substance. True sovereignty and freedom comes from within, a place of deep understanding and personal responsibility, not from following the loudest voice in the room. In other words, let he who be deceived be deceived. But let's look at the illusion of ownership and sovereignty. At the core of this discussion is the concept of sovereignty, the idea that we, as individuals, should have ultimate authority over our own lives, and I agree, we should be free from external control. Yet in modern society, true sovereignty is often more illusion than reality. Some people believe that they own their bank accounts, their homes, their identities. But what does ownership mean? When the very name we use to assert these rights is governed by laws and copyright we did not create and is often held in trust by entities beyond our control. The privileges we enjoy, such as driving licenses, passports, bank accounts, etc., are granted by a system that demands something in return. To engage with these systems, we must agree to their terms, often without fully understanding the extent of the contract we're entering. And each time we use these privileges, we reaffirm our participation in a system that defines and limits our freedom, often in ways we do not fully comprehend. But what is the price of compliance? This really brings us to a critical paradox. How can we decry corporate fraud, unjust taxes, or exploitative mortgages when we have knowingly or unknowingly entered into agreements that perpetuate these very structures? How can we claim sovereignty when we have traded it for the comforts and conveniences offered by a system that demands our compliance in return? Consider the act of stepping outside your home with a driving license. That license is more than a piece of plastic. It's a contract with the state, a symbol of your agreement to adhere to the rules in exchange for the right to drive. Each time you use a passport, you confirm your identity as a subject of a particular nation state, relinquishing the portion of your sovereignty of the ability to cross borders. By maintaining a bank account, you place your financial autonomy in the hands of institutions that operate under a framework designed to protect their interests, not necessarily yours. These transactions are not inherently wrong, but they come at a cost we often overlook. Each privilege we accept is a thread in the fabric of a system that defines and limits our freedom, often in ways we do not fully understand. But what is the role of sovereignty and personal responsibility? To reclaim our sovereignty, we must first recognize the ways in which we have surrendered it. This requires a huge, deep understanding of the contracts we enter into and the implications of our participation in these systems. It means questioning whether the benefits we receive are worth the price we pay in terms of autonomy and freedom. Sovereignty is not merely a political concept, it is deeply personal. It is about owning every aspect of your life, from your name to your property without the need for external validation or permission. True sovereignty means standing outside the system, free from its constraint, and fully responsible for your own existence. And this brings us to the true meaning of being an anarchist, not the chaotic lawlessness often portrayed in the media, but rather profound responsibility to rule oneself. To be an anarchist in the truest sense is to live by God's law, to abide by the natural laws of the universe, and to govern oneself with integrity, without relying on external authorities to dictate your actions. As John Locke, a philosopher whose ideas greatly influenced modern political thought, once said, "The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. For in all the states of created beings capable of law, where there is no law, there is no freedom." True sovereignty allows us to create and live by our own laws, not those imposed upon us by external authorities. And people look at the pursuit and life of happiness. At the heart of this quest for sovereignty is the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, a foundational principle that has inspired countless individuals throughout history. But how can we pursue happiness when we are bound by the very systems that limit our freedom? How can we truly live when our existence is dictated by contracts and agreements we may not fully understand? As Thomas Jefferson wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold those truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Yet the pursuit of happiness requires more than just the recognition of these rights. It requires the active reclaiming of them from the systems that seek to control and define for us. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great American philosopher, once remarked, "The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be." This is the essence of sovereignty, the power to decide for oneself, free from the constraints and expectations of external systems. It is in this pursuit that true happiness and fulfillment are found. But who are you? Before we reclaim our sovereignty, we must first ask ourselves, who are we? Are we men and women with inherent rights and freedoms, or are we merely consumers, persons defined by the systems we participate in? The difference is profound. As men and women, we are sovereign beings, capable of creating and living by our own principles. As consumers, we're merely participants in a system designed by others, living according to the rules that serve interests beyond our own. This is the question we must each answer for ourselves. Are you a sovereign individual, or are you just another cog in the machine, content to trade your freedom for the comforts of consumerism? The IAM community is here to help you discover and embrace your true identity, to support you in reclaiming your sovereignty, and to guide you in building new systems that align with your values and aspirations. But this journey has to begin with self-awareness, with understanding who you are and what you stand for. And this brings us to the crux of the paradox of sovereignty and freedom. Many of us claim to want freedom, but how many of us are willing to accept the full weight of sovereignty? To be sovereign is to own nothing, to be beholden to no one, and to stand outside the system entirely. Yet for most of us, the allure of convenience, safety, and privilege is too strong, and we willingly re-enter the system, renouncing our claims to absolute freedom. We must ask ourselves, are we truly prepared to live without the bank accounts, the passports, the licenses that tie us to the system? Are we ready to reclaim our names and identities, to live as sovereign men and women, free from the control and benefits of external authorities? Or have we become so accustomed to the creature comforts of the system that we can no longer imagine life without them? So I say this before I close, a call for reflection, sovereignty, and action. I urge us all to reflect on the true meaning of freedom, sovereignty, and the pursuit of happiness. Before we accuse others of fraud, before we challenge the system, let us first examine our own lives. Let us consider the ways in which we have traded our sovereignty for privileges and conveniences, and ask ourselves if we are truly willing to reclaim it. True freedom is not about rejecting responsibility, it's about embracing it fully. It is about understanding the implications of our choices and making decisions that align with our deepest values of autonomy and self-determination. We here at the IAM community are here to support you on this journey. We're committed to helping you build new systems that reflect your sovereignty and your values, but that has to begin with you, knowing who you are and what you stand for. Are you now ready to step out of the role of consumer and into the role of being sovereign? The choice is yours. Think of these quotes. To be truly free, one must own nothing and own nothing to anyone. Sovereignty is not given, it is taken. The only person you're destined to become is the person you decide to be. The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Here's a bit of a punchline for you. Sovereignty begins where the contracts end. True freedom is the power to live by your own rules. Pursue happiness on your own terms and build systems that reflect who you truly are under the laws of God. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful day.